The bell above the Starbucks door jingled as Harper Bennett stepped inside. Her sketchbook tucked under her arm and her mind spinning with half-finished ideas. The smell of freshly ground beans, cinnamon, and the subtle scent of toasted bagels greeted her like an old friend. It was her favorite kind of Saturday morning, busy but not rushed, creative but not chaotic. At least it should have been. She adjusted her knit scarf, which was threatening to slide off her shoulder again, and scanned the crowded coffee shop for an open seat. No luck. Every table was taken, and people were settled in like they planned to stay for hours. Students with textbooks, couples on dates, remote workers lost in screens. With a resigned sigh, Harper made her way to the counter, ordering her go-to, a caramel oat milk latte extra foam. As she waited, she doodled in her notebook, a tiny cat riding a skateboard. Her mind wandered to her online stationery shop. Orders were slow this month. Rent was due in 2 weeks. But maybe, just maybe, the next social media post would go viral. She allowed herself a sliver of hope. "Caramel oat milk latte," the barista called out. Harper turned too fast. Her tote bag swung forward. Her sketchbook slipped from her grip. And her latte. Oh no, her latte, tipped out of her hand in a perfect arc. The sound was unmistakable. A gasp, followed by the splash of hot coffee hitting something that was definitely not the floor. "Oh my God, oh my God," Harper squealed, already fumbling for napkins before she could even look at the damage. She dropped to her knees in front of a table near the window. A man sat there, expression frozen, as the coffee dripped from the lid of his now-soaked MacBook. "I'm so sorry," Harper babbled, pressing a wad of napkins uselessly against the edge of the laptop. "Please don't touch it. I mean, do touch it, but like, gently." "Oh God, did I just fry your files?" The man blinked, lips pursed tightly. His blue eyes, icy and shocked, met hers. "It's fine," he said flatly, though his clenched jaw said otherwise. Harper swallowed hard. He was gorgeous, sharp cheekbones, impossibly symmetrical features. He looked like the kind of man who wore tailored suits and had a personal assistant. And she had just baptized his expensive tech gear in caramel oat milk. "No, it's not fine. I ruined your laptop. Can pay for repairs. Or replace it. Or at least buy you a new coffee. I feel awful." He closed the computer gently, as if any sudden movement might make things worse. "Please, just stop apologizing. It's done." Something in his voice made her flinch, not unkind but distant, controlled. Still, Harper wasn't the kind of person to just walk away from something like this. "I'm not usually this clumsy," she said softly, though the evidence suggested otherwise. "I'll make this right, I promise." He glanced at her. "How?" She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know yet, but I will." "What's your name?" He hesitated. "Grayson," he said finally. "I'm Harper." She offered a sheepish smile. "I guess this is our very weird meet cute." Grayson stared at her. The faintest flicker of something, amusement, disbelief, tugged at the corner of his mouth, but vanished almost instantly. "I'm not really the rom-com type," he muttered. "Right, course. I didn't mean. Anyway." She stood up quickly, cheeks burning. "Let me at least give you my number. In case you need to reach me for, repairs. Or dry cleaning. Or therapy bills." To her surprise, he didn't protest. He reached into his pocket and handed her his phone. "Type it in." Harper did, careful not to shake as she entered her contact. "Okay. Harper Bennett. I live in Brooklyn. I design custom stationery and sometimes spill things on strangers. I'm really sorry." "You've said that," he replied, retrieving his phone. The moments stretched awkwardly between them. Around them the coffee shop buzzed on, oblivious. "Well, I'll get out of your way," Harper said. "If the laptop dies, just let me know." "I mean it." Grayson nodded, already pulling out a towel from his leather briefcase. Of course he had a towel, and dabbing the keyboard with clinical precision. Harper backed away, nearly tripping over someone's bag on the floor before making it to the door. As soon as she was outside, she buried her face in her hands and groaned. Smooth, Harper. Real smooth. Inside, Grayson watched her leave through the window, his eyes narrowing slightly. He wasn't angry. Not really. It wasn't even the laptop. That was replaceable. Backed up twice anyway. It was the chaos she brought. The openness. The unfiltered apology. People didn't talk to him like that. Not anymore. Not since the money. Since the success. She hadn't recognized him. Not even a flicker of recognition. No mention of his company. No strategic small talk. He should have been annoyed. He wanted to be annoyed. Instead, he was curious. He opened a new note on his phone and typed in 2 words. Harper Bennett. Harper Bennett spent the next 2 days spiraling between mild panic and extreme curiosity. She hadn't heard from Grayson. Not a text, not an email, not a mysterious Venmo request titled Revenge Coffee Fund. Nothing. It was both a relief and a disappointment. She told herself that was a good sign. Maybe the laptop survived. Maybe he had a waterproof keyboard. Maybe the universe was feeling merciful. Still, the way he'd looked at her lingered in her memory. Those icy blue eyes like a glacier barely concealing fire underneath. She hadn't been able to shake it. By Monday afternoon, Harper was back at the tiny co-working space she used twice a week in Lower Manhattan. It was modest and smelled faintly of printer ink and takeout noodles, but it had fast Wi-Fi and a quiet vibe. She opened her laptop, determined to upload the new spring greeting card designs to her website, but instead found herself typing Grayson plus Tech plus New York into the search bar. She didn't know why she hadn't Googled him earlier. Maybe she didn't want to admit how intrigued she really was. Or maybe she was afraid of what she'd find. The results were overwhelming. Grayson Cole, CEO of Cole Dynamics. Net worth estimated at $87 million. Grayson Cole, tech giant with a reputation for remaining mysteriously reclusive. 10 things to know about Grayson Cole. New York's hottest and most private. Bachelor. Her jaw dropped. The photo accompanying the last article showed him in a black tuxedo at a tech gala, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of champagne. He looked exactly the way he had at Starbucks. Polished, composed, every inch the man who'd probably never spilled anything in his life. Holy crap! She leaned back in her chair, blinking at the screen. Of all the people to dump coffee on, it had to be a literal millionaire. Not just any millionaire, that kind. The intimidatingly attractive kind with his own company and headlines in Forbes. She laughed, half in horror. You spilled coffee on the real-life Bruce Wayne. Congrats, Harper. A few heads turned her way. She quickly closed her tabs and tried to refocus, but her mind kept drifting. Why hadn't he told her who he was? She wouldn't have known if she hadn't looked him up. That was rare. Most guys with money, even a little money, found a way to slide it into conversation within 5 minutes. Not Grayson. He just accepted her apology, handed over his phone, and then vanished. The mystery only made him more fascinating. Meanwhile, in a different part of Manhattan, Grayson Cole was trying to focus, but failing. He sat in his sleek office on the 32nd floor of Cole Dynamics HQ, the city skyline glittering behind him like a well-designed screensaver. The tech team had managed to retrieve most of the files from the coffee-drenched laptop, and he'd replaced the device the same afternoon. It wasn't about the laptop. It was her. He didn't know why he couldn't stop thinking about Harper Bennett. Her wide hazel eyes. The frantic way she'd tried to mop up the mess. The way she'd talked, honest, awkward, unfiltered. It was refreshing. Most people he met these days were guarded. Or worse, calculated. They either wanted to impress him or use him. But Harper hadn't known who he was. She didn't seem to care. That fact lingered like a song stuck in his head. His assistant, Ava, stepped into the office, interrupting his thoughts. Your meeting with the UX team is in 5. Grayson nodded. Thanks. She hesitated. Is everything okay? You seem distracted. "I'm fine," he replied automatically. But as Ava closed the door, he glanced at his phone. He still had Harper's number. He hadn't saved it, hadn't reached out, but it was there, just sitting in his contacts. "Call her," a voice in his head whispered. "At least say thank you for not suing you for emotional damage after your frosty attitude." Instead, he opened her Instagram. Her account was public, and a quick search had revealed her business page at Harper Ink Paper. Her feed was a pastel dream. Soft floral sketches, hand-lettered cards with words like "You Matter" and "Sending Sunshine", pictures of her cat wearing tiny hats, and behind-the-scenes peeks of her working at her desk. Messy bun, glasses perched on her nose, ink stains on her fingers. It was disarming, honest, real. Without overthinking it, he double-tapped a recent post. Then another, and another. Within seconds, his phone buzzed. DM. From Harper. "Harper. Sue. Either you're a stalker or your laptop survived and you're feeling sentimental." He stared at the screen, then typed back. "Grayson, the laptop survived. Barely. Grayson. Thought I'd check out the woman who nearly cost me a prototype worth $10,000. She replied almost instantly. "Harper, are you serious? Harper. I'm mailing you a lifetime supply of coffee filters as an apology." Grayson laughed. Loud. "That didn't happen often. Grayson. Just coffee filters." Harper fine. "Filters and a handwritten apology card. Custom designed." Grayson. "I'd rather you let me buy you a coffee. To even the score." Harper. "Are you asking me out?" Grayson. "I'm asking you for a do-over. No caffeine spills this time." Harper. "Only if you promise not to show up in a tuxedo." Grayson. "No promises. I'm very dramatic." She replied with a laughing emoji. Grayson stared at their exchange for a while, something warm and unfamiliar blooming in his chest. The next day they met again. This time at a quiet cafe in Tribeca. Not a Starbucks, not crowded, no laptops in sight. Harper wore a navy blue sweater dress and her favorite boots. Nervous but excited. Grayson was in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled, no suit jacket in sight. He greeted her with a smile that softened the sharp lines of his face. "Hi, Harper." "Hi, Grayson." And just like that, a second chance began. Without spills, but with something far more dangerous brewing beneath the surface. Harper didn't remember the last time she'd been so nervous for a coffee date. Or if this even counted as a date. Technically, it was a do-over, peace offering. But the butterflies in her stomach had other ideas. She arrived 5 minutes early at the cafe Grayson had chosen, Elliot and Vine, a cozy little spot tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. Smelled like lavender and cinnamon. The vibe was calm, understated, and somehow intimate. Place where people whispered rather than talked. She wore a burgundy knit sweater, black jeans, and ankle boots. Effortlessly casual, though she tried on 3 different outfits before settling on this one. Her hair was half up in a loose twist, and she'd swiped on a bit of lip gloss for confidence. Grayson arrived on time as expected. No tuxedo, thankfully. He wore dark jeans, a slate gray sweater, and a navy peacoat. His hair was slightly tousled, and a hint of stubble shadowed his jaw. It should have made him look rugged, but somehow it just made him more polished. Harper stood up and smiled. "You look not intimidating." "That was the goal," Grayson said with a half smile. "And you look like the kind of person who makes their own candles and has opinions about tea." She laughed. "I do make my own candles. And I have very strong opinions about chamomile." They ordered their drinks. Chai latte for her, black coffee for him, and took a seat by the window. The conversation was easy, surprising them both. No forced small talk. No awkward pauses. Just 2 people sharing stories. Harper talked about how she started her greeting card business after quitting a soul-crushing job in corporate design. "I wanted to make things that made people feel something. And I was tired of pitching PowerPoints to people who thought Helvetica was a flavor." Grayson grinned. "Helvetica is definitely minty." She raised an eyebrow. I knew you were secretly a creative. He shrugged. I understand aesthetics. I run a tech company, but design matters. Good design can change the way someone experiences a product, or a moment. The way he said that made her pause. Grayson asked about her sketching process, the materials she used, the way she chose her lettering styles. He was genuinely interested, not just politely nodding. It caught her off guard. So, she asked, do you always Google the people who spill drinks on you? He smirked. Only when they offer to pay for a $10,000 prototype. She covered her face in mock shame. Still mortified. I'm kidding, he said. Mostly. But seriously, it wasn't about the laptop. What was it about then? He looked at her, his expression more serious now. You were real. Most people aren't. The words hung between them, heavier than she expected. And then, Grayson. A voice interrupted. A woman stood by their table, clutching a designer handbag, eyes wide. Her blowout was perfect. Her coat screamed luxury. And her surprise was very, very visible. Grayson blinked. Claire. Claire's eyes darted between the two of them. Wow, this is unexpected. I haven't seen you in forever. Grayson stood slowly, polite but stiff. Claire, this is Harper. Harper, Claire, my ex. Harper offered a tight smile. Hi. Claire didn't return it. She looked Harper up and down, subtle but sharp, and then turned her attention back to Grayson. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. I'm not, he replied quickly. Too quickly. Claire's smile returned, icy and perfect. Well, good to see you, Grayson. Maybe we can catch up sometime. She walked away without waiting for an answer. Harper stared into her chai latte. That was a moment. Grayson sighed. We dated for a year. It ended last spring. Mutually, but not exactly gracefully. Harper nodded, unsure what to say. She didn't like that I worked too much. Or that I wasn't very public about our relationship. And were you? Public? Well, I keep my private life private. Harper lifted her eyes to meet his. But are you still not seeing anyone? Grayson's expression softened. I don't know. Am I? That stopped her heart for a second. She smiled, trying to ignore the heat in her cheeks. Smooth recovery, Mr. Cole. I try. The interruption lingered, though. Claire's appearance reminded Harper of the chasm between her and Grayson's world. She made greeting cards in a studio apartment. He made million-dollar deals in glass towers. And women like Claire probably belonged in his orbit far more naturally than she did. As if reading her thoughts, Grayson leaned forward. Don't let her get to you. I'm not, she lied. He didn't press, but his gaze stayed on her for a beat too long. They left the cafe together, the sky already fading into early evening. Outside, a few snowflakes drifted down, slow and lazy. Harper shivered. Grayson noticed. Here. He shrugged off his coat and placed it over her shoulders without a second thought. Smelled like cedar and something clean. She didn't want to give it back. You're impossible, she muttered. He smirked. You haven't seen anything yet. As they stood on the sidewalk, neither of them eager to leave, Harper turned to him. Grayson. Yeah. This was nice. Really nice. His voice was quiet. It was. They stood close. Too close. The kind of close where one breath could turn into a kiss. But neither moved. Not yet. Instead, Grayson brushed a strand of hair from her face. Let me see you again. Harper nodded slowly. Okay. He smiled, the kind that could melt steel. Good. Then he stepped into a black car that pulled up to the curb, disappearing into the night. But not from her thoughts. Back in her apartment, Harper hung up his coat and stared at it. What was she doing? He was a millionaire. Yo. A man who belonged to headlines and high-rises. And she was Harper, maker of puns and glitter. But when he looked at her, he didn't seem to see any of that. He saw her. And for the first time in a long while she wanted to believe that maybe, Just maybe, someone seeing you could be enough. The following week moved both slowly and swiftly for Harper. Each morning felt like a countdown, and every evening she replayed her coffee date with Grayson in her head. She told herself not to read too much into things. After all, it had only been coffee. But his coat still hung on the hook by her door, and every time she saw it, her heart did an involuntary flutter. Grayson had texted the next day. "Hope you didn't freeze. I'll need my coat back eventually. Preferably in person." She'd stared at the message for a solid 5 minutes before replying. "I was thinking the same. Just about giving it back. Not freezing." His response had come instantly. "Friday? I know a place." Friday arrived, and Harper found herself outside a small, softly lit restaurant that looked like it had been pulled straight from a Nicholas Sparks novel. A wooden sign over the door read La Vita Dolce, and the windows glowed amber in the falling dusk. Grayson stood at the entrance, waiting. He smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile that didn't just show in his mouth but lit up his entire face. "You made it." She lifted the coat draped over her arm. "Returning stolen property." "I was hoping you'd forget," he teased, taking it from her hand and holding the door open. Inside, the space was warm and intimate. Strings of fairy lights, exposed brick, and the scent of rosemary and garlic. The hostess greeted Grayson like she knew him, and within moments, they were seated at a private corner table. As they perused the menus, Harper glanced around. "This is beautiful. It's one of my favorites," Grayson said. "Quiet, not flashy. Good food. You deserve that." Her heart skipped. "You barely know me." He looked at her, serious. "I'm getting there." Dinner was divine. Fresh pasta, buttery scallops, and wine that made her feel warm inside. Conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from childhood memories to irrational fears. Harper admitted she hated escalators. Grayson confessed he'd never learned to swim. "That's surprising," she said, sipping her wine. "You seem like the kind of person who'd have a pool and host summer parties." "I do have a pool," he said, smiling. "I just walk around it and pretend to be confident." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're not what I expected." "Good." After dessert, they wandered outside. The city was quieter now, the streets bathed in golden lamplight. A light breeze tugged at Harper's hair, and without thinking, Grayson brushed it back behind her ear. His hand lingered. "Can I walk you home?" he asked. She hesitated only a second. "Sure." They strolled slowly through the city, avoiding the main roads and weaving through quieter neighborhoods. The tension between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was electric. Every glance, every brush of their hands felt charged. As they turned onto Harper Street, she looked up at him. "You're not what people think, are you?" Grayson gave a small, self-deprecating smile. "Depends what they think. I'm used to assumptions. Money makes people project things onto you. Power too. And what do you think of me?" He stopped walking. The air stilled. "I think you're kind, unfiltered. You care about people even when it costs you time or comfort. And you make me laugh." She smiled, soft and unsure. "I haven't felt like this in a long time." He reached for her hand. "Neither have I." They stood there in front of her building, under the faint glow of a flickering streetlight. It would have been the perfect moment to kiss. But he didn't move. And neither did she. Instead, he gently squeezed her hand and whispered, "Good night, Harper." She whispered it back and he walked away, slowly, deliberately, as if leaving too quickly might shatter the spell. That night, Harper lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her heart was full, confused, and humming. This wasn't just a meet-cute anymore. This was something real. But real also came with risks. 2 days later, Harper received an unexpected delivery. A beautifully wrapped box sat at her doorstep, tied with a red ribbon and a handwritten note attached. "Thought you might want this back. Or maybe you'll consider letting me be the one who keeps breaking things from now on. Grayson." Inside the box was the coffee mug she had left at the cafe. The one with her hand-painted design. "Today is a fresh start." Her heart fluttered as she held it. Not just at the gesture but at the note. There was something vulnerable about it. A quiet offering. And that was when she realized. She wasn't just falling for Grayson. She was already halfway there. For the next few weeks, Harper and Grayson fell into a rhythm that felt as strange as it did natural. They didn't label what was happening between them. There were no declarations, no "what are we?" conversations. Instead, there were long walks through Central Park, takeout dinners on Harper's couch, shared playlists, and inside jokes that belonged only to them. It was, Harper thought, something close to magic. And yet, she could feel it too. The slight tension under the surface, the subtle holding back. Not from herself, from him. Grayson was generous, attentive, and present when he was with her. But he never talked much about work. And any time she asked too directly about his company or his past, he gently changed the subject. She tried not to press him. Everyone had walls. But as the days turned into weeks, she found herself wanting to know not just the man who laughed at her terrible jokes and remembered her favorite tea, but the whole of him, the pieces he kept hidden. One chilly Thursday evening, Harper invited Grayson over for dinner. She cooked. Actual cooking, not just heating up leftovers, and managed not to burn anything. When he arrived, holding a bottle of wine and a small bouquet of white tulips, she tried not to swoon. He wore a soft navy sweater and jeans, and for once, looked like just another guy off the street. Not a secret millionaire. They ate on the floor of her living room, using her coffee table as a makeshift dining table. Her apartment was small, cluttered, full of art supplies and mismatched pillows. But he didn't seem to care. "I like it here," he said after dinner, leaning back on the floor with a wine glass in hand. "It feels lived in. Warm. I'd offer you a fireplace, but my electric bill already hates me," she joked. He chuckled, then went quiet. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. Grayson glanced at her, instantly alert. "Of course. Why don't you ever talk about what you do?" He took a sip of wine, then set the glass down. "I thought you didn't care about that." "I don't. Not in the way you think. I'm not trying to Google your net worth or anything." She smiled, but it faded quickly. "I just want to know you. The real you." Long pause. Finally he exhaled. "I own a tech company. Few actually. Mostly in artificial intelligence, data systems, and secure communications. I used to do consulting, but now I focus on private investments. There's a board, a legal team, all that. It's a lot." She blinked. "So you're like a real-life Bruce Wayne without the batsuit." He laughed genuinely. "Minus the crime fighting, yeah. And the brooding. I do a little brooding. Only when it rains." She smiled but didn't let go of the thread. "Why the secrecy, though? Why keep it all hidden?" Grayson hesitated. "Because it changes things. The moment someone knows, they look at me differently. They either want something from me or they get intimidated. I'm not good with people, Harper. You made me feel normal." She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. "You are normal. You're also a little strange, definitely too sarcastic, and you eat too fast." His lips twitched. "Are you complimenting me? Trying? Is it working?" He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Yes. That night he stayed. Not in a rushed, passionate way, but in the way someone does when they're ready to let their guard down. They fell asleep side by side, tangled in each other's warmth, Harper's head resting on his chest as his fingers slowly traced shapes across her back. It was the first night in a long time that either of them slept deeply. But love never comes without complications. The next morning, while Grayson was in the shower, Harper's phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend, Lexi. "Lexi, is this your laptop guy?" Attached was a link. Curious and half asleep, Harper clicked it. It was an article in a celebrity gossip column. A photo of Grayson exiting an upscale event, dressed in a tux, surrounded by flashes of paparazzi. The headline read, "Mystery Tech Millionaire Grayson Maddox Spotted at Gala, Still single, still elusive. Harper stared at the screen. Grayson Maddox. He hadn't even told her his last name. And now she was reading it for the first time in a tabloid. When Grayson stepped out of the bathroom, towel slung low on his waist, Harper was sitting on the edge of the bed, the phone still in her hand. She looked up at him, conflicted. "Grayson Maddox," she said. He froze. His smile faded. "I was going to tell you." "When?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "After another dinner. Another week. I wasn't hiding it to hurt you. I liked being just Grayson to you." "You still are," she said. "But you have to trust me. If we're going to be something real, I can't be in the dark." He walked over slowly, kneeling in front of her. "You're right. I should have told you. I've spent so long protecting myself, I forgot what it feels like to let someone in. I don't want to mess this up, Harper." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then don't." He reached up, gently cupping her cheek. "I'm all in," he whispered. She nodded. "So am I." And in that moment, with truth finally spoken and walls beginning to fall, the foundation of something real began to rise. The weekend after their moment of truth, Harper felt something shift, not just in the air between them, but inside her. Grayson wasn't just the mysterious man whose laptop she had ruined with a rogue latte. He was Grayson Maddox, tech mogul, media target, and, despite all that, someone who looked at her like she was the only person in the world that mattered. But the truth has a strange way of pulling strings long buried. And sometimes the past doesn't stay in the past. On Monday, Harper returned to work at the small design firm where she freelanced on contract. The buzz of the office, the clatter of keyboards and occasional bursts of laughter from the break room, used to feel comforting. But today there was a strange undercurrent. People were whispering, glancing at her. Her coworker, Anna, pulled her aside near the water cooler. "Harper," she said, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and curiosity. "Please tell me it's true." "What's true?" Anna pulled out her phone and held it up. There was another article, this time from a more reputable source. Grayson Maddox seen with unidentified woman. New romance or rebound? The photo was grainy, but it was clearly Harper, walking next to Grayson outside the small bookstore he'd taken her to the weekend before. Her cheeks burned. Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's you, right? Is it real?" Harper forced a smile. "I guess it is." The entire office knew by noon. By 3, her inbox was flooded, not with work, but with curious messages from acquaintances, old classmates, even her ex-boyfriend, Trevor, who hadn't texted her in over a year. "Trevor, wow. Upgraded, huh? Is it true?" She deleted it without responding. But what lingered wasn't the attention. It was the sudden feeling that everything was moving too fast. Too many eyes. Too many questions. And underneath it all, the creeping fear that maybe she wasn't ready for his world. Grayson, however, seemed unfazed. That night, when he picked her up for dinner at a cozy French bistro tucked away in the West Village, she tried to bring it up. "Everyone at work saw the article," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. He nodded. "I'm sorry. Press, they dig. They always do. I just wasn't prepared. I mean, I spilled coffee on your laptop a month ago, and now I'm in a gossip column." Grayson reached across the table and took her hand. "I know it's overwhelming. And if you want to step back," she squeezed his hand. "I don't." He looked relieved. "But you have to promise me something," she added. "Anything. No more surprises. No more secrets." He smiled softly. "Deal." They clinked wine glasses and leaned into each other, ignoring the stares from a nearby couple who had clearly recognized him. And for a while it felt like they could weather it all. The public eye, the opinions, even the uncomfortable questions. But neither of them anticipated who would come knocking next. It was Friday night when the past truly arrived. Wrapped in designer heels, sharp perfume, and a voice that could slice glass. Grayson had invited Harper to a gallery opening downtown. The space was sleek and modern, with minimalist sculptures and abstract paintings lit under soft golden lights. They were mid-conversation with the curator when she appeared. "Grayson." The voice was smooth and confident. Harper turned to see a striking brunette in a crimson silk dress, tall and elegant. Her makeup perfectly done and her expression unreadable. Grayson's body tensed immediately. "Sienna," he said carefully. "Didn't expect to see you here." She smiled with thinly veiled venom. "I could say the same." Harper instinctively stepped closer to Grayson, her hand brushing his. Sienna's gaze flicked to her, appraising. "And this must be the mystery girl from the tabloids." Grayson put an arm protectively around Harper. "This is Harper. Harper, this is Sienna. My ex." The word hung in the air like smoke. Harper extended her hand politely. "Nice to meet you." Sienna didn't take it. "You're braver than I thought, dating him. I hope you're good at puzzles." "Sienna," Grayson warned. But she wasn't finished. "You'll learn soon enough, Harper. Grayson has a habit of disappearing when things get too real. Just a heads up." With that, she turned on her heel and vanished into the crowd. Harper felt her stomach twist. "Don't listen to her," Grayson said immediately. "She's bitter. We ended a long time ago." Harper nodded, but the words had left a mark. Not because she believed Sienna, but because she saw the flicker in Grayson's eyes. The one that said, "There's more I haven't told you." Back at her apartment later that night, Harper stood barefoot in her kitchen while Grayson sat on the couch, silent. She finally turned to face him. What did she mean by that? "About you disappearing." He rubbed a hand over his face. "Sienna and I dated 2 years ago. It was serious, for a while. But I wasn't ready to let anyone in. I kept her at a distance like I do with everyone. When she wanted more, left. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked away." Harper's chest tightened. "I was scared," he admitted. "Of losing control. Of being vulnerable. I thought if I stayed distant, I couldn't get hurt. And now..." He looked up at her, eyes raw. "Now I'm terrified of losing you." She crossed the room and sat beside him. "You're not the only one who's scared, Grayson. But we have to try. We have to choose to trust." "I want to," he whispered. "I really do." She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then don't disappear on me." "I won't," he said. "Not this time." Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the promises whispered between two hearts learning how to stay. But inside that tiny apartment, something shifted again, something quiet and lasting. Because when the past comes knocking, it doesn't have to destroy what's being built. It can be the moment love decides to grow deeper roots. This concludes the 6th chapter, as requested. If you'd like to make any revisions or adjustments to this chapter, let me know.